survivors think about you wanting to support a sexual assaulter for the Supreme Court?
They're sexy, they're glamorous, they make a blonde look fabulous.
Chinese spies hid surveillance chips in hardware that made it into the data centers of nearly 30 American companies, including Apple and Amazon, according to a Bloomberg report. The investigation says chips about the size of a grain of rice were planted on server motherboards built in China for California's Supermicro, one of the world's biggest suppliers, and that a federal probe into the attacks is still open after 3 years. Apple, Amazon, and Supermicro have each denied the report. The researchers who designed this typeface say it helps you remember what you read because it's difficult to skim, and that increases your focus. The creators said students who read passages in Sans Fraggetica could recall 7% more of the material than passages written in Arial. In a coordinated series of public statements, Western governments accused Russia of attempting cyber attacks on targets including the World Anti-Doping Agency, the Global Chemical Weapons Watchdog, and a nuclear power company. The Department of Justice charged 7 Russian intelligence officials with conspiring to hack computers and steal data. The Kremlin says the allegations are, quote, Western spy mania. The winner of the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced tomorrow, and bookmakers in the UK are expecting a double billing. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Trailing behind the pair is the man taking credit for their progress, President Trump.
We will win!
The fight over Brett Kavanaugh is entering its bitter final hours. As protesters seethed in the streets and in the hallways today, senators out of view took turns in a secure room, reviewing the confidential FBI report on the allegations against the nominee. It didn't seem to change much. Key Republican swing vote Susan Collins seems to be leaning yes. Democratic swing vote Heidi Heitkamp announced she's a no. And conservative mainstay Orrin Hatch got caught losing his temper.
When you grow up, Robinson. When I grow up,
The confirmation vote is now set for Saturday afternoon. The anti-Kavanaugh demonstrators went into today knowing they didn't have much time left, and they were resolved to make every hour count.
We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors.
Cancel Kavanaugh!
Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh.
Knock, knock! Senator McConnell, we are outside to have a conversation. We even brought you some coffee. We wouldn't have to come to your house if you met with your people. My friends who live in Louisville, they can't get meetings with you. You will only meet with a very small, select group of elite Republicans.
Melissa Byrne is a full-time progressive activist. She's been in this game a long time. These days, she works as a paid consultant for Ultraviolet, a feminist group based in D.C.
And now let's go to Hart. Brett lies, Brett lies.
This week could very well end with the easy confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. All the hearings and the questions and the investigations could quickly fade from view. But one lasting memory will remain around here. This was the week that MeToo protesters took over the Capitol.
We believe survivors. We're trying to stop Kavanaugh. Yay!
The Senate is usually a safe space for senators. It's a well-funded, well-organized bubble. Reporters are allowed in, but they have strict rules they have to play by.
If you can see Flake, that would be huge.
Melissa and her team have burst that bubble. Most famously, they popped Senator Jeff Flake's bubble while national cameras rolled.
Do you think that he's telling the truth? Do you think that he's telling the truth to the country?
That moment went viral, and it wasn't an accident.
We've only seen a few Republicans. They are brave to come face to face with human beings.
There were protesters looking to find Flake, and Melissa, who used to be an intern up here and knows her way around the dizzying web of hallways that make up the actual halls of power, told them where to go to do it.
Hi, Senator. Not a senator. Will you help us stop Kavanaugh, though?
This is how it works.
So she doesn't enter through this door.
Activists position themselves where they expect senators to be.
Would probably want to wait, like around here.
Choke points, like elevators, outside hearing rooms.
And you can stay here and you can walk up until like this line.
And the trams that move members throughout the Capitol complex.
They'll be either coming out of here or coming out of here.
If they see a Democratic senator who's voting against Kavanaugh, they do this.
High five. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
If they see a Republican senator, they do this.
So I have a question, Senator Kennedy. What do you think that sexual assault survivors think about you wanting to support a sexual assaulter for the Supreme Court? I don't understand why you can't stop for a second and have a conversation about sexual assault. Listen to all of the sexual assault survivors that have come from all over the country to plead their case.
That's what Melissa has been doing all day lately, telling people where to go to yell at senators. Many have been inspired by the tactic.
We believe survivors. We believe survivors. Beto is way hotter than you do.
I'm State Representative Estella Blanc.
I'm touched another time.
I haven't touched you, sir. And your outburst yesterday was really interesting. It was also incredibly disappointing.
Please believe us. Please listen to us.
Please believe y'all.
Your constituents deserve better.
The one tactic that's never been used before is having at mass scale the hallways and tunnels full. I wanted to make it so they couldn't walk, the senators couldn't walk anywhere without seeing one of us.
You mentioned that it's like actually getting harder to track them down, like they're staying out of the hallways now.
Yeah, I mean, here are these guys that like, we're so tough, look at us. Like we represent like strict American values of like strong men in charge. And they are afraid of women asking them questions in the hallway. They're afraid to go to the bathroom.
So you're a progressive woman with a Brett Lies paint on your face, running around yelling at senators, or, you know, confronting them.
Yes. Speaking the truth to power.
So the Republicans basically point to that and say, look, we can't reason with these people. They're lunatics. We're gonna do what we're gonna do. Do you think that maybe you're hurting the cause?
I think what's hurting the cause is that before this fight even started, the very serious people were saying, oh, we can't win, so don't even try. And that's what hurts it when you have an elite class that says it's not worth fighting.
So, another white police officer is on trial for killing a young black man. Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke is charged with first-degree murder for shooting Laquan McDonald 16 times. Today, the lawyers in this case made their closing arguments and the jury began deliberations.
When deadly force is used, when it's not necessary, when it's not justified, it is first-degree murder.
Van Dyke's defense: he was afraid of being injured by McDonald, and that fear was reasonable. That's why when the psychiatrist Lawrence Miller testified for the defense this week, he said a reasonable officer would have acted the same way Van Dyke did.
Our brains are telling us, do whatever you can to get away from the danger.
The defense is using this reasonable thing because it's the standard that determines whether it's okay for a cop to shoot people. Let me tell you a story. Back in 1984, there was this guy named DeThorne Graham. Graham was a diabetic and his blood sugar was low. So he and his buddy Will stopped at a gas station to get orange juice. The line was too long, so they left quickly to go somewhere else. A police officer named Connor was outside and thought Will and Graham had just robbed the store. He pulled them over, and Will told Connor, "Hey, officer, my friend is having a diabetic attack." Connor made them wait until he could check what had happened. By this point, Graham was delirious. He got out of the car, ran around it twice, and then he passed out. When he woke up, backup officers had arrived, and he was cuffed. When he tried to protest, one of the cops slammed his head onto the hood, and the others roughed him up. He was finally let go after Officer Connor found out there wasn't even a robbery. Graham was reasonably pissed, so he sued, claiming the officers violated his Fourth Amendment rights. You know, that's the one that guarantees citizens to be secure in their persons against unreasonable seizures. But the Supreme Court said, nah, we gotta analyze this claim of excessive force under the Fourth Amendment's objective reasonableness standard. It's because of this objective reasonableness rule that the officers who killed Sam DuBose, Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Alton Sterling, Jamar Clark, Jeremy McDowell, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and many others were hardly punished, if at all. Van Dyke shot McDonald 16 times. Many of the shots hit him while he lay on the ground. So what will the jury be considering? Was McDonald an imminent threat as he wielded a knife some 13 to 15 feet away? Was Van Dyke reasonably fearful for his life? If the jury answers yes, Van Dyke will probably go free, which is gonna reasonably piss a lot of people off in Chicago.
On Sunday, Brazil holds a first-round vote for president. The frontrunner is an ultra-right-wing congressman who's known for racist, homophobic, sexist remarks.
Eu falei que não estou pra você porque você não merece. Fica aqui pra ouvir.
But some voters seem comfortable overlooking that kind of language because Jair Bolsonaro, a former army captain, is promising to get rid of crime and corruption, huge problems right now in Brazil. Bolsonaro can thank corruption for taking out his main opponent, the popular former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who was found guilty of taking an apartment as a bribe. Brazil's rise in violence affected Bolsonaro personally too. He got stabbed at a campaign rally last month and survived to become even more popular.
On a recent Sunday morning, a few hundred active and retired members of Brazil's armed forces took off their shirts and got together to run down the beach to Copacabana. It was a show of force meant to protest the killing of a young soldier in an armed robbery, an example of the lawlessness that a new breed of military men turned political candidates are promising to eradicate. There are nearly 100 veterans running for office this year under that promise, including Marcelo Soares Correa, a retired paratrooper who goes simply by Corporal Correa.
Nossa bandeira jamais será vermelha! Nossa bandeira jamais será vermelha! Brasil!
Então, bandido bom é bandido morto. Levantou a arma porque está em confronto. Está em confronto, está em combate. Está em combate, é inimigo de guerra. É inimigo, tem que ser eliminado.
But won't more innocent people die if that happens?
Bom, na guerra, inocentes morrem na guerra, né? Se deixar as Forças Armadas realmente trabalhar, ela vai eliminar por completo essa grande bandidagem que tomou conta do nosso país.
Most military candidates are aligned with Jair Bolsonaro, and many were recruited by his vice presidential candidate, a retired general named Antônio Hamilton Mourão, who took over the campaign after Bolsonaro was stabbed. Both men are known for praising the military dictatorship that ruled Brazil until 1985, a regime that routinely tortured, killed, and exiled its opponents.
Do you think that the military should be in charge of the government?
Oh, there is a lot of people that want the military in charge of the government, but I don't think. I think that we have to go through elections and we try in successive ways to better our democracy. Our democracy has been very shattered.
You have said on at least a couple of occasions statements that don't quite square with what you're telling me now. Last September, you said that if the political institutions are incapable of solving problems with corruption, then the military will. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes, correct? That's correct.
And just this month, you mentioned that there are situations where a president, with the help of the armed forces, can affect what you call the self-coup.
Yeah. It was both times we are discussing a hypothetical situation, okay? And what I say, if the country is the Titanic, okay, that's sinking, we, the military, will behave like the orchestra. We'll stay playing and we'll go down with the country. I think no.
In Rio de Janeiro, the idea of a military takeover is not so far-fetched. In February, facing abysmal approval ratings, the government ordered the armed forces to take over security and to fight the drug gangs that operate in the favelas. But the intervention has had no effect on crime. And people who live in the favelas say that fighting fire with fire only makes things more dangerous for everyone. Michele Lacerda lives in Rocinha, the biggest favela in Rio.
Tia Dinda! Quer vir também?
She knows people who've died from stray bullets. Her uncle disappeared 5 years ago after he was arrested by security forces and is now presumed dead.
How do you feel seeing that Jair Bolsonaro has a shot at the presidency?
Tenebrosa. Ele prega que para cada uma pessoa do Estado, para cada policial que morrer em ação, que morram 30 na favela. Dentro de uma favela, pelo menos 97% dos moradores não têm o menor envolvimento com tráfico. E esses 30 que vão morrer, sinto muito, é o meu irmão, é o meu primo, pode ser eu, pode ser o meu filho, pode ser a minha mãe, sabe?
Brazil has always had ultranationalists and far-right wingers. But this year, their rhetoric is appealing to a wider public, including people who used to support the center-left government of the Workers' Party, but grew sick of rampant political corruption.
Voto de protesto em Jair Bolsonaro, porque é o único que pode romper com esse sistema velho, corrupto e ultrapassado.
But if Bolsonaro is going to win, his campaign will have to earn back voters disgusted by his long history of offensive statements.
We have to reach the women, okay, because there is something's not good around the women.
When you say that there are some issues or problems with Mr. Bolsonaro's relationship to women in the electorate, what do you mean? Why is that?
Now, he doesn't have issues or problem, okay? The other parties are making this, okay? And this is a campaign that has been coming a long time and showing that he's not fond of women, okay?
He is famous internationally for having told a fellow member of Congress, who's a woman, that she did not deserve to be raped by him.
Yes.
Right? Doesn't that suggest that it might be reasonable to think that he is a misogynist person?
Yeah, that was a figure, okay, a rhetoric, okay? Because when he says that she was very ugly, that's what he wanted to say, okay? And this was not a good thing that he did. He knows that.
Bolsonaro's allies and supporters are convinced that Brazilians are so sick of the status quo that they're sure to sweep him into office. But whether or not Bolsonaro himself prevails on Sunday, the candidates he inspired still have a chance to shape Brazilian politics for years to come.
Aos 18 fui pro exército e fui embora. Nunca parei.
What if Bolsonaro loses?
Bom, democraticamente, vamos aceitar o que foi feito e o que ficou combinado. Desde o momento que não faça com o nosso povo o que eles vêm fazendo há 33 anos. Saqueando, roubando, manipulando, mas se por acaso houver manipulação e tentarem realmente destruir o nosso país e levar ao caos ou ao comunismo, aí sim, aí nós veremos como poderemos agir.
Thank you for joining us today for this tribute to legendary Burt Reynolds. His look, his attitude, his persona were one of a kind. So today we join here in Eisenhower Park in the town of Hempstead to mourn his loss.
When I was a kid, Burt Reynolds was the biggest thing in the world. You know, the Cannonball Run and Longest Yard and Smokey and the Bandit. He was the shit back then.
He was a real man. I mean, words can't even describe how sexy that he was. I mean, the tight jeans, the mustache, the hat, the glasses, anything that the man was in was fabulous.
He made this car famous. So when I think of this car, I think of Burt Reynolds, just like automatic.
To us, this is for Burt. This is our memorial for him. If it wasn't for him, I never would have fallen in love with this car. It's all him. It's all him.
We come to all car shows, especially when we heard that there was going to be Trans Ams in tribute to Burt Reynolds. One of the best movies of all time is Smokey and the Bandit.
And we also came here because I love car shows.
I got the belt buckle, the shirt, which he wore in Smokey and the Bandit 2, the hat, which he wore in Smokey and the Bandit 2, and the watch, and the ring, which he wore in Smokey and the Bandit 1. I'm surprised that I won Best Costume because I came here for the memorial on Burt Reynolds and really idolized him. I made this collage. Oh, this is when I met Mr. Reynolds in June. This is a picture that my girlfriend Jackie took, and this is one of him with the Hooper car. But we didn't take that one. That one we got off the computer, off the internet.
Everybody wanted to be a part of it. People were wearing Bandit shirts and Trans Ams were the hottest car out there.
They're sexy, they're glamorous, they make a blonde look fabulous.
And back then, you know, I was living with my grandmother, and she looked out the window and says, gee, that guy's got a beautiful car. I think it says a lot about the Firebird Trans Am.
All right, now we're going to ask all our Trans Am owners to get behind the wheel, rev those engines. I think we're going to start our 7-horn salute. 3, 2, 1.
I'm about to watch him catch Fatish. Catch is what locals call professional wrestling. Fatish is basically what we would call voodoo. My man put smoke on tip, let the chicken on fire. Holy fucking shit.
You think this is a good influence for the kids you're training?
Sans ce que qui sport ote, ce to cadre qui était, les locaux à la paix le boulot. Catch est banni partout na Congo.
Bon, liboso basi balinga be na catch te, mais banda ba mona biso ndenge basi mususu balanda biso na si.